40 years old.
Who is that girl I see staring straight back at me? Where will my reflection show who I am inside? I'm now in a world where I have to hide my heart and what I believe in, but somehow I wish all the world was inside in my heart and loved who I am. But who is that this girl I see staring straight back in my? Why is my reflection someone I don't know? Must I pretend that I'm someone else for all time? When will my reflection show who I am inside?
Over the course of my research, I interviewed my fellow students to see what they knew about autism. I asked them, what is autism, in order to gain a greater understanding of the community's awareness and understanding of autism. They answered as follows.
I don't know much about autism.
I really don't know.
I don't know much about it.
I've heard of it, but I don't know exactly what it is.
A disability.
It affects your social skills?
I think it's a genetic disorder.
Autism, I think, is when a person has a difficulty getting along with other people.
I think it's an emotional distance between a person and their being able to communicate what they're feeling and what they would like to do or how they would like other people to do things for or with them.
I think autism is a social disorder where you can't say what you mean, like you have ideas and you can't express them properly.
Autism is a social disorder where you have thoughts in your head but you can't effectively communicate it to other people.
These answers help me draw the conclusion that a lot of students and adults don't really know what autism is. While some may know about the disorder, they don't know specific details. I sat down with Miss Jessica Gregoric, a special education teacher and case manager at Cromwell High School, in order to find a simple and exact definition.
Autism is a developmental disability that affects children in three main ways. The first way being social interactions, the second having to do with communication, and the third to have to do with cognitive functioning. It's more prevalent in boys than in girls, and right now about 1 in 150 students are diagnosed with autism. The diagnosis of autism is generally under three specific things. The first being an impairment in social interaction. Children with autism have an impaired ability to keep eye contact with people. They have trouble with facial expressions. They have trouble making friends, developing different relationships with their peers. They're generally not very spontaneous. They have trouble with emotional reciprocity, being able to give back the same emotions that other people give to them. The second area has to do with an impairment in communication. They either lack the ability to communicate or have severe delays. And the students who do have the ability to communicate have a lot of trouble sustaining conversations with other people. They don't really have the ability to do things spontaneously or use make-believe. How they have no imaginations when it comes to things. Most things that they do are very concrete. And then the third one has to do with repetitive behaviors and preoccupations for certain things. Students with autism generally have repetitive motions, something they'll do over and over and over again, which they call perseverating. And students will often, flap their arms or rock to kind of make themselves feel better. And they often will have preoccupation with one specific thing. And
My sister is autistic, so over the course of the years, my family has had to grow and adapt around the disability. I sat down with my mother, Miss Linda Dimitriadis, to gain a greater insight on what it was like to raise a child with autism.
Hello. My daughter Cassandra was born July 5th, 1995. She was a perfect, healthy baby, full term, with no complications at delivery. And she walked at 9.5 months old, and by a year she was speaking, and everything was going fine. She was perfect. Around 18 months of age, I noticed she stopped looking at us, stopped interacting with us, stopped talking. So I thought something was wrong, but I wasn't quite sure. And at that time, autism wasn't a disability that you heard of. It was one of those things that when you heard of autism, you heard of kids who rocked and banged their heads, and that wasn't the case. At the age of 3, we placed Cassie in the Cromwell Public Schools in a special ed preschool program. And from there, she stayed for about a year. And then when she turned 4, we decided that we needed to get a form of therapy that was a little bit more aggressive than what the public school was offering in Cromwell. We had an opportunity to take Cassie to Rocky Hill, and we placed her in a program called the KIP program in Rocky Hill. This was a program that dealt with children who had autism. She was given a one-on-one aid, and she was doing discrete trials every day. Discrete trials is a method that they teach children. It's very, very structured. They're taught one item at a time. Also, when she was around 4.5, 5 years old, we decided to get some early intervention in the home. We had speech people come in, speech therapists who worked with her weekly. We had occupational therapists. We had tutors. It was a carryover from what was happening at school. And the key is, for autism, early intervention. The earlier, the better.
When it comes to autism, early intervention is extremely important. Students that present with autistic behaviors generally need a lot of help with both behavioral and language services. And the earlier they do it, when they're developing their language, when they're developing their behavior, it's most beneficial to start right at the beginning and get students in to have whatever kind of services they need right away before they develop behaviors that could cause problems later on in their life. So getting students with autism into a program as soon as they're diagnosed is absolutely crucial. Students who are put into early intervention at age 2 and age 3 generally have much better outcomes, both with language and behavioral difficulties.
Almost all children who have autism have some type of sensory issue, whether the sensory issue is lights or noise or clothing. They have a tendency to not like tags. They have difficulty handling loud noises like a fire drill or banging. Also, they have difficulty with the lights because sometimes the lights, especially fluorescent lights, tend to hum, and that just totally drives them crazy. What we could filter out and not have bother the normal person, they're super sensitive to these areas. And that's when an occupational therapist really comes into play. They're able to help them regulate their body and learn different techniques to regulate their body. Children with autism lack eye contact. Social interactions are not normal. They have huge deficits in expressive and receptive language. Although the language with a lot of therapy does improve, they still tend to have pronoun reversals. They still tend to refer to themselves by name as opposed to I or me. And these are some of the areas that you'll definitely see across the board with children who